Hey, good evening.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah, you can.
great. Sounds good. Well, good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining our public meeting for the City of Charlotte's Bryant Farms Road Extension Project. We're going to start with a presentation that'll take about 30 minutes, and then we're going to open it up for a question and answer session. And before we jump in, I just wanted to go through a little bit of the webinar logistics. If you're a public attendee on the meeting, you won't be able to share your video or your audio. So please submit any questions or comments that you have using that Q&A box at the bottom of your screen. And you can type questions at any point during the meeting, and then we'll answer those during the Q&A portion after the presentation. I did want to note that if you have, a specific question about your individual property, it may be easier to discuss those one-on-one with a project team member. So if you want to provide your name and contact information in that Q&A box, someone from the project team can contact you individually after the meeting. And we also provide some other options for contacting the project team at the end of the presentation. I'll also say this webinar is being recorded, and we'll be posting it on the project website if you want to refer back to it later or share it with any friends or neighbors that weren't able to attend this evening. And lastly, I just remind our panelists to please keep your microphones muted if you're not speaking, so we can minimize any background noise. Now I'll take just a minute to talk about the objectives for our meeting tonight. I did want to note this project is divided into two phases. We have phase one that extends from Elm Lane to Ray Road, and then phase two continues from Ray Road to Ardrey Kell Road. So first, we'll just give some overall background information on the project, and then we'll introduce phase two of the project, which is currently in the advanced planning stage. And we haven't had any prior meetings about phase two, so this is really a chance to introduce that project to you guys. So we'll share the current concept design we have for phase two and talk about our next steps. And we're also looking to gather any initial information that you can provide us with that we should consider as we move more into the detailed design on that project. And then finally, we'll provide updates on phase one activities since the last public meeting, and we'll introduce the design build team and talk about next steps for phase one. And now we'll take a minute to introduce the panelists that we have on the call for tonight's meeting. And I'll start by handing it over to Ahmad to introduce the city's team.
Thank you, Jenny, and good evening. My name is Imad Fakhruddin. I'm with the City of Charlotte, Department of General Services, Engineering and Project Management. And we have with the city also Karina Tate, Project Manager, Samantha Miller, Program Manager, Erin Pratt, Senior Project Manager with the Charlotte Department of Transportation. And I'll ask Dave to introduce his team. You're muted.
Thought I did that right this time. Thank you, Maud. My name is David Tolley. I'm with Blythe Development Company. We're excited to partner with RK&K on the design build for the city of Charlotte for phase one of Bryant Farms. I'm going to introduce a couple of members that are with RK&K that are here tonight. Brandon McInnes. Brandon is the lead design manager for RK&K, and Roman Prokopovich is here, and Roman is the assistant lead engineer. And you'll be hearing from Roman here shortly, but we are excited to be here, and we're excited to be part of this group with the city of Charlotte, and we're looking forward to the project. Jenny, I'll hand it back to you.
Thanks, Dave. And I'll introduce the phase two planning team. My name is Jenny Noonkester with RSNH, and I'm the project manager on the consulting team that's assisting the city with phase two. And then we also have Allison Drake from RSNH on the call, and she's the lead roadway designer for phase two. And with that, I'm going to hand it back over to Ahmad to give us some background information on the project and talk a little bit about how we got to where we are today.
Okay, well, thank you, Jenny, again. Existing Bryant Farms Road is between Community House and Elm Lane, as you see it on the screen in red. We have the phase one of the project, of the extension project between Elm Lane and Ray Road. It is a design build project, and currently it's in the design phase. The second phase of the Bryant Farms Road extension is between Ray Road and RDK Road, and it is currently in the planning phase. Next. Bryant Farms Road has been on the thoroughfare plan since the 1990s. The majority of the developments in this area south of I-485, including I-485, started in the 1990s, except for the Rayburn, which was built in the 1985 or mid-80s. These new developments along the Bryant Farms Road extension reserved the right-of-way for this road, and in some areas constructed sections of the road within the development area, just to connect to the local development roads, or in at least one case to connect to the main road. City transportation projects are funded by the transportation bonds. So Charlotte citizens vote on the bonds placed on the ballots usually every 2 years. So phase one of the Bryant Farms Road extension was funded by the 2018 and 2020 bonds. You can find more information about the phase one by going to the charlottefuture.com/BF1. It's for Bryant Farms phase one. Phase two extension is currently funded for advanced planning only. This includes all the process for the planning, like geotech work, environmental investigation, and also preparing of the concept plans, which will be summarized in a planning report. Funding for the final design, real estate, and construction will be included in future bonds. Next. The goal of Bryant Farms Road extension is to help alleviate traffic congestions on existing east-west community connections. And like Ballantyne Commons Parkway, north of this project, and RDK Road, south of this project. And also alleviate some congestion on Ray Road itself at the intersections with these two streets. Also, the goal of this project is to increase connectivity of street network. Bryant Farms Road will connect Community House Road with Ray Road, Palm Short Road, RDK Road, and Providence Road, where the new shopping centers, including the mixed use developments, offices, residential in Waverly and Ray Farms, all this area with the developments along this corridor will be connected. And the third goal is to provide a safe and comfortable experience for bicyclists and pedestrians. The city includes pedestrian and bicycle amenities with every major project. And for this project, we included multi-use path for that purpose. Thank you, Jenny. And next. And Jenny will go through the Bryant Farms phase two process. That's the phase two between Ray Road and RDK. Go ahead, Jenny.
All right. Thanks, Ahmad. Yep. As Ahmad mentioned, phase two will extend Bryant Farms Road from Ray Road to RGK Road. That's a total length of about 1.2 miles. Phase two includes some new location sections as well as 2 existing sections of Bryant Farms Road. The new location sections are shown with dashed lines on the map, and the existing sections are shown with solid lines. We anticipate that the project will involve reconstructing some of these existing sections of Bryant Farms, and will be providing new full depth pavement. The project includes improvements at the intersection of Tom Short Road, where we're currently proposing a roundabout, but that is subject to change. And then we also have a new traffic signal that's proposed at RGK Road. And we've mentioned we're in the advanced planning stage for phase two. So that means we've been doing a lot of data collection and coordination. So this slide summarizes the activities that we've been working on so far. We've analyzed traffic operations and looked at crash data. We've conducted initial surveys for environmental features like streams and wetlands, threatened and endangered species, historic properties, and hazardous material sites. And we're coordinating with environmental agencies, and we'll continue this coordination as we go through the plan approval and permitting process. We've also conducted an initial hydraulic evaluation because we have the crossing of Flat Branch, and we want to ensure that we're not causing any rise in floodwater elevations in that floodplain area. So we will have additional coordination with FEMA as the project moves forward. And lastly, we've taken an inventory of the existing utilities that are in the project corridor and identified any conflicts with utilities that are out there. And based on all this information that we've collected to date, as well as some stakeholder coordination, we've developed a concept plan that we're going to share with you tonight. And I think Amada mentioned we're also working on a planning report, and that's going to document everything we've done in the advanced planning stage, and that'll be available for review on the project website once it's completed. As part of the planning process, we looked at several different typical section options that had different combinations of bicycle and pedestrian accommodations, planning strip widths, medians, and turn lanes. And we reviewed all those options in light of the constraints that we identified in the project area, as well as the existing reserved right-of-way width. And we really tried to balance our project goals with minimizing potential impacts. So this image shows the preferred typical section, which is consistent with what's proposed for phase 1. It has a 12-foot multi-use path and an 8-foot planning strip on each side, and it's a curb and gutter section. And we'll be providing 2 travel lanes, 1 in each direction, and we did add left turn lanes at certain locations. And at this time, I just want to take a few minutes to walk through the current concept plan and discuss the project in a little more detail. And again, I'll note that this is an initial concept and it is subject to change as the design progresses. So I'll start with an overall view of the corridor. You can see it extends from Ray Road here on the western end and continues through the existing section at Ravencrest, and then across Flat Branch and on the existing section behind Polar Ridge, crosses Tom Short Road, and then the eastern end is at Ardrey-Kell Road where that new signal is proposed. And I want to zoom in just a little more and walk you through a little bit more of the design detail. Starting at Ray Road, there's a new traffic signal that we're anticipating will be constructed as part of phase 1. And then phase 2 will continue on new location behind the Rayburn neighborhood. The light gray on this map indicates that multi-use path, and then the green is showing the planning strip that separates the multi-use path from the roadway. You'll see we have a proposed culvert where we cross a tributary to Flat Branch, and then we move into that existing section in Ravencrest. And we have a left turn lane that is proposed to Ravencrest Park Drive. And I will note that we anticipate replacing the existing pavement in this section, and some additional right-of-way may be needed through here. And we also have left turn lanes proposed for Dennington Grove Lane and Lankin Road. And then we move across with the proposed bridge that we have over Flat Branch, and then move into that existing section behind Polar Ridge Elementary School. And again, we anticipate reconstructing this section of the road and replacing the existing pavement. And our current concept does have that roundabout proposed at the Tom Short Road intersection, which again is subject to change. And then we move east behind Flat Branch Nature Preserve, where we do have a connection to Alhambra Lane, and then continuing on to Ardrey-Kell Road, where a new traffic signal is proposed. And here we will connect with the Ardrey-Kell sidewalk project that's currently under construction. And since I mentioned the Ardrey-Kell sidewalk project, I will say that it's a project that will extend new sidewalk on Ardrey-Kell from Tom Short Road to the existing sidewalk that's near Stone Creek Ranch. And you probably noticed that construction recently began on that project, and it's scheduled to be completed in the spring. So once both phases of Bryant Farms Road are completed, there'll be a complete bicycle and pedestrian connection from Community House Road all the way to Providence Road, which covers about 3 3/4 miles. And additional information about that sidewalk project is available at that website that's shown on the screen. In terms of next steps for the phase 2 project, as Ahmad mentioned, it's currently funded for advanced planning only. We have some limited funds to continue work on the design plans, but additional bond funding will be needed for the final design and construction. We're hopeful that those future transportation bonds will be approved, and then we'll be back to provide additional information once that project is funded for design and construction. If you have any questions about the phase 2 project, please go ahead and type those in that Q&A box, and we will get to those at the end of the presentation. But at this time, I'm going to hand it over to Roman to give some updates on the phase 1 project.
Sure. Thank you, Jenny. And thank you to everyone online. We do appreciate your time tonight. Allow us to give you a quick update on the phase 1 project as well. So first, in this slide, you can see a very rough outline of the project limits and the main features of the design. We are still in the preliminary stages of this design process, and we'll be reaching out with further details as design is further developed. And while the exact configurations and impacts are still being worked on, the main features of the project will include a 4-leg roundabout at the existing intersection of Bryant Farms Road with Elm Lane and Blakeney Heath Road, an extension of Bryant Farms Road to Ray Road with 2 travel lanes and a multi-use path on both sides, and a new signalized intersection with Ray Road, which will include a connection for the future phase 2 project. And we can go to the next slide, please. This project is unique as the city's first progressive design build for transportation. So using a progressive design build contract for this project allows the city to get to construction much faster than with a traditional design bid build project. With traditional contracting, the city would select a designer based on their qualifications. The designer would then fully complete plan development, and then once plans were fully complete, the project would go out for bid and be awarded to a contractor who would only then begin construction. With a progressive design build, the designer and contractor work as a team from the early stages of the project. In this case, the city developed a preliminary layout for the project, and then our team was selected based on qualifications and experience. Now our team is working together with the city to take this preliminary layout into a fully detailed design. In addition to speed, another advantage of progressive design build is that it allows for more input and collaboration between the city and the design build team. Progressive design build contracting allows the city designer and contractor to work together in all phases of the project, and it also allows for the city to maximize the project improvements within a given budget. In this initial stage, we'll work with the city to develop plans to the right-of-way plan level, and then develop a GMP or guaranteed maximum price at that time. This is essentially our bid for the remaining design services and construction. The GMP will then be negotiated with the city, and we can move directly into the construction phase from there. And if we can go to the next slide, we'll just share the next steps and the milestones for the phase 1 project. So we do plan to finalize the roundabout and intersection design this fall. And at that point, we'll be holding detailed meetings with affected property owners. As we get closer to the end of this design phase, we'll hold an informational meeting that will be open to the public in the summer of 2022. In that meeting, we'll provide specific details on construction and the project timeline going forward. We plan to complete the design phase and begin construction of early works packages early in 2023. These timeframes are tentative, and updates will be communicated through the city's webpage. So again, we thank you for your time, and I'll turn the presentation back to Jen.
Thanks, Roman. And again, I'll remind everyone, please go ahead and submit your questions through that Q&A box at the bottom of the screen. You can also submit any questions and comments through the project websites that are listed on the screen here. So if you have any questions after the meeting, please feel free to go to the website and submit those, and someone from the project team will get back with you. And we also have Ahmad's contact information shown on the screen, so you can reach out to him with any questions about either phase of the project. We do know that some of you provided questions and comments via email prior to this meeting. We have received those comments and questions, and we will be providing responses to those after this meeting. And we're also working to compile a list of frequently asked questions, and we will be posting them on the website at some point in the future as well. Now I want to take just a minute to hand it over to Samantha to let her address some of the questions that we've received so far on phase 1, and then we'll open it up for that general Q&A. So I'll turn it over to Samantha now.
Thanks, Jenny. Yes, we do want to recognize that we did get a number of questions from some citizens on the phase 1 project. We want to assure you that we will be coming back to you with another informational meeting on phase 1, but we're really looking to get more information from you as the public on your thoughts on the phase 2 concept. So we'd love to entertain and give you more information on your phase 2 questions at this point, and we'll be sure to get back to any of the phase 1 questions at a later date. So I think Allison will be moderating our questions from here on.
All right, thank you, Samantha. So I see some questions in. Thank you guys for putting those into the Q&A and in the chat. So the first question we've got here is a question. They did not see any bike lanes on the concept. Samantha, do you want to take that one?
Yes, thanks, Allison. So we did have our typical section in the phase 1 that showed our multi-use path. Due to the lack of driveways and the safer path that we can use on this project, we've gone with a multi-use path, and then we're continuing that onto the phase 2 path as well. So it'll make for a much more continuous project. The multi-use path allows us to have uninterrupted areas and lots of different options for both pedestrians and cyclists.
Great, thank you. Looks like our next question coming in is about the schedule. When the best case scenario for phase 2 to be open for traffic.
So we'd like to get back to you with that information. As we talked about, we are still looking at the funding years for design and construction. But as soon as we have that information, we'll be getting back to the public to let you know when the design phase will start, and we'll be able to set a schedule from there.
Next question is regarding Tom Short. The question is, how will the road help with the congestion that's already existing on Tom Short Road?
Yeah, so this involves a lot of traffic conversation, and we are still working through our roundabout options. So we're going to defer that question at this moment, and we will get back to you all with more information on the Tom Short intersection. We'll be coordinating with our partners in CDOT to get you a more complete answer on that.
And Samantha, the next question is also somewhat related to traffic. There's a couple of questions regarding the traffic light at Parks Farm, if that is going to have any improvements or if that light is going to remain. And then also, will there be a light where Ravencrest neighborhood exits onto Ray Road today?
I'm going to defer to Erin Pratt, who is with CDOT on this question, and talking a little bit more about the traffic light, although I think we may need to get back to them on that, Erin.
Hi, yes, so I'm Erin Pratt. I'm with CDOT, as previously mentioned, and we received this comment a lot on the first phase when we came out to introduce that project, and CDOT worked with NCDOT, and the existing traffic signal that is located at Parks Farm will remain. And we have gone through the channels to work with DOT, and they are in concurrence with us retaining that signal as well. So we will have a new signal at Ray Road where the new Bryant Farms intersects, plus the Parks Farm. Great, thank you, Erin. The next question is in regards to someone that's going to be impacted potentially by the project. When they want to know when they would be notified if they're going to be impacted, specifically their land as part of the project.
Austin, do you know if they're referring to phase 1 or phase 2?
I don't think it's specified in the question.
Okay, so I'll answer it from both sides of it. If you're on the phase 1 project and you're impacted, you'll be the design build team will be meeting with individual property owners as they move through the design process, and we'll be getting in touch with you as soon as they've determined those options. If you're part of the phase 2 project, understand that we've really only gone through the planning phase. And when we get more into design and have a more understanding of our schedule, we'll be able to get back information for you on when you might be contacted. But we will be sure to contact all property owners that are affected during the design process to make sure that they understand what the impacts are.
All right, the next question again is about the traffic at Tom Short. Some concerns with the existing queue that happens at the Polo Ridge Elementary School, and concerns in the question, will that block the traffic from being able to enter Bryant Farms Road? So Samantha or Aaron, I don't know if either one of you want to take that one.
Erin, do you want to talk a little bit about some of the traffic that we've looked at on Tom Short, and then maybe we can get back to them with a little bit more comprehensive information?
Yes, sure. So we did, part of the planning phase was to look at how the traffic along Tom Short, especially how the school traffic will impact the roundabout, the proposed roundabout as we're presenting today. And the analysis did show that the roundabout will not be negatively impacted with school backup. However, this is something that once we start moving through design phase, we'll be looking at how the current driveway relates to the improvements at the intersection. So once we enter into that phase, we will have more information to follow up with everybody and give a better or an updated answer.
All right. Next question is regarding someone that backs up to the project, their home. They're asking about the existing sidewalk that's running behind their home and if that would be maintained or what would happen to that existing sidewalk. I don't think it specifies where that is specifically on the project in the question.
Yeah, so depending on if it's the phase 1 or phase 2 projects, we would be looking at that in the design process. We always want to make sure that we have a consistent typical section throughout the project and that we're providing the best facilities possible. So we'll be looking at either of those items in both of our phases, and we'll be coordinating with those property owners as well.
There's a question on here. Have any decisions been made on the geotechnical and CMT special inspections for both projects?
So I'm not quite sure I totally understand that question. We are still getting into the design process on phase 1, and we are just coming out of the planning phases on phase 2. So we would have continuing geotechnical work throughout the design phases on both phases.
The next question is from some of the residences in Rayburn. There was a question about maintaining mature trees, as well as what type of street light would be used. I think there's some concern that some of that light might impede into some of the homes that are in that neighborhood.
So I'm going to take the tree question, and then I'm going to throw the lighting question to CDOT because they deal with lighting. So as a city, we always look to maintain our maturing trees and are very context sensitive about the trees in the area and try to minimize the impacts to those trees. So obviously we'd be looking at that through the design phase and to see what we could do. It's always important to the city to maintain our tree canopy. And I'll let Erin answer the question about lighting.
Thank you. So in terms of for lighting, big picture, we do like to try to keep our lighting consistent with the surrounding streets and the existing lighting that we have on those. But for these two projects, we've not gotten into that part yet for either one of them. So when we get to that stage for the design, we will be having those conversations on what type of lighting we will be using. So we will definitely follow up with you, with the group, once we get that determined.
Right. Next question is, do you anticipate breaking up phase 2 into smaller funding options?
That is not part of our current plan. Our current plan is to do phase 2 as the concept plan that we have shown. If that were to change in the future, we would definitely come back and give that information to the public. But currently, we are looking at phase 2 as the limits that were shown in our concept plans today.
Right. The next question is regarding Audrey Kell. There's a couple questions around this one. Looks like some concerns with the traffic on Audrey Kell, maybe being a bottleneck at the Bryant Farms intersection, as well as has any consideration been given to widening Audrey Kell to 4 lanes instead of the 2 existing lanes that are out there today?
Erin, I don't know if you want to talk more about Audrey Kell, but understanding that Audrey Kell is an NCDOT road. So I'll let Erin give us a little bit more information on what she may have talked about with NCDOT.
Yes, so ArchiCal is an NCDOT facility, and so as of right now, we do not, CDOT is not able to discuss anything because we've not heard anything much from DOT yet. But if you would like to know more information of any future projects, we would be more than happy to give you a contact over at DOT, and you can reach out to them to ask any questions you may have regarding ArchiCal.
Okay, the next question is, what will the speed limit be on either phase of Bryant Farms?
Ahmad, do you want to take this question as to speed limit on both of the roads that we have?
Yeah, the question is about the posted speed will be 35 miles per hour on phase 1 and phase 2.
Great, thank you, Aman. All right, next question will be about the buffers between the roadway and people's backyards. And I know we talked a little bit about trees. I guess there's a question here if there'll be any retaining walls or other buffers.
So obviously phase 1 is still in the design process. Our design build team will be getting back to those folks on that project with more information. So I'd like to just hold that question until the design build team kind of gets more into their design, and they'll be able to give you more information as they go forward with property owner meetings.
The next question is, what will be done to help the noise that extra traffic was going to potentially bring as this travels through Raven Crest?
So as a city, we always look to do these roadway projects. There's not necessarily any noise abatement that we do, but we always look at all of those items throughout the design process. So we will take everything into consideration when we present back that full design during the real estate phase.
Okay. There is a question here. There's some concern about flooding and a drainage ditch behind Ducksville Drive from someone from the Rayburn neighborhood.
So I would like to take that question to our stormwater folks. So we're going to get back to that resident on that question as we don't have anyone from stormwater on this call tonight, but we'll be sure to follow back up with you on that question.
And I think we touched on this a little bit in the presentation, but maybe just touching on it again. There were some questions about phase 1 schedule, when it'll be open to traffic and when property owners will be notified or when there'll be input on that project.
So phase 1, we will be coming back out with that informational meeting that Roman talked about. And that will be at the time that we present that schedule. Obviously, because it's a design build project, it's going to be a little bit different in terms of the construction, but that team will be communicating all of the conversations about construction and traffic management at that time.
And I think the last question I see on here is regarding the Blakeney Heath and Bryant Farms Road intersection. What is the plan for that intersection?
So again, that's in the phase 1 project. Our design build team is currently working on the design in that section. And I'd like to give them some time to really get into the design as they work through it with both the city and NCDOT. And they will be sharing that information in their next informational meeting as well.
I think that wraps up all of the current questions we have. As everyone is hearing the Q&A, if you've got any other questions, feel free to type those into the chat box. And we'll give everybody a few more minutes here for a chance to ask any additional questions.
So Allison, I saw a question, I think, about affected families on phase 1. And I don't know if that was missed in the presentation, but the design build team will be meeting with affected property owners throughout the design process. So expect to see those individual meetings coming soon as we get through our design process.
Great, thank you, Samantha. And there was a question about wanting to zoom in to the roundabout. So maybe we'll waiting on some more questions to come in. Jenny, if you could pull up that concept map and just zoom into the roundabout so public could see that and see if there's any additional questions they might have.
And also I saw one other question about, school traffic for Polar Ridge, and I just wanted to note that we have been coordinating with, CMS and with the NCDOT school access program. So we have been coordinating with CMS and getting additional information about that school traffic. So just wanted to provide that information for that one question.
There's another question that's come in about the Raven Crest Clubhouse and pool, if there would be any privacy structures for that.
So I think as we get farther into the design process, we'll be looking at all sorts of items and making sure that we're working with the residents that are affected as the project goes through. So just give us the time to get started into the design phase, and we'll definitely be coordinating with all of you on that.
Jenny, there is another request to zoom in at the Elm Lane and Bryant Farms Road intersection as well.
And I'd like to point out for the phase one, this is very conceptual. Our design build team is working on their design. So what you're seeing is what came out of our planning phase. So please understand that we are continuing design efforts to work with NCDOT and to work with property owners in this area to actually refine this design. So.
Looks like there might still be a few more questions coming in, so we'll give everybody just a few moments.
And Allison, I will just say, and I'll go back to the screen here in a minute with the websites for the projects. So if you want to go back and watch this recording or look at any more of the presentation in more detail and submit any questions through the project website, someone from the project team will get back to you on an answer for those as well. So if you don't think of everything tonight, that's fine. We'll still be available to respond to questions through the website.
And any questions that we weren't able to answer tonight that we said we get back to you on, we've got those recorded as well, and we'll be getting back to those citizens as well.
So we've had a few more questions coming in. One is a request for a statue for the project.
So we love public art. We always have to think about safety first, but we will look at any considerations that we can look at.
Great, thank you, Samantha.
I'm guessing he wants a statue of himself, though.
It didn't specify in the question. The next one is about how will traffic be routed when the roundabout is constructed? I'm not sure if that one was meant for the Elm Lane roundabout or the Tom Short roundabout. So I don't know if we have an answer for both there.
Yeah, so obviously on the phase one, they'll be talking more about the, it's on Elm Lane. Okay. Yeah, so the phase one team will be talking about traffic control during their informational meeting as soon as they finish their design. So they will be getting back to you on the traffic control and the timeline, obviously, because it'll be slightly different than the normal traditional process.
Great. And another question about that roundabout. The question is, it looks big. Are there various sizes being explored? And I suppose that probably applies to really both of the roundabouts.
So I will say on the phase one roundabout, the design team is still looking at that design. And like I said before, it is very conceptual what we're showing you on the screen. It's not representative of where we are moving through design. So just understand that we will be coming back to you on that phase one. On the phase two roundabout, again, it's conceptual, and we are continuing to evaluate and make sure that we're accommodating traffic properly.
Okay, Jenny, there's a request to zoom in on the Bryant Farms and Ray Road intersection. And then there's also a question that's related to this one. It's asking whether the current left turn off of Ray Road into the Ravencrest neighborhood would be eliminated so that traffic would not turn left down Ravencrest Parkway when there's traffic backed up on Ray Road to use Bryant Farms as a cut-through route.
Erin, do you want to handle this left turn question?
As of right now, we are not looking at options to removing that left. However, we will look through it. CDOT will look into that and follow up with a response here in the future.
Thank you, Erin. And it looks like the last question we've gotten is just again about the public art. Looks like there's just some more desire for public art in this area, especially in Valentine.
Yes, as always on our projects, we look to see where we can incorporate public art to make our spaces more beautiful throughout the city.
Again, we'll take a brief pause that if there's more questions, please feel free to type those into the Q&A box on your screen and we'll continue to answer questions. Okay. Next question that just came in is, what does culvert mean?
Yeah, so a culvert is just a drainage structure that we put underneath the road for the water to flow through. So imagine it's basically a square pipe.
All right, and then just a little bit of additional clarification on a previous question about that left turn off of Ray Road, just to get the clarification there that there are no plans to currently block off that entrance to Ravencrest.
No, CDOT at this time has no plans on removing that left turn lane from Ray Road onto Ravencrest. And I will add to the property owner or to the citizen who has asked that question, if you need more follow-up, please feel free to reach out to Ahmad and we can have more conversation offline about this if you have more questions.
It looks like another one came in, Aaron. Will there be a traffic light on Ray going in and out of Ravencrest?
As of right now, no. And we can, I can follow up with our traffic group within CDOT who looks at traffic signals. But Ray Road is a DOT facility, so we would have to coordinate with DOT as well. But for us to be able to put signals, regardless if it's a DOT facility or a city, there are different warrants and analysis that has to be met to have a traffic signal. So at this time, I will say no. But we can follow up just to get confirmation, clarification for you if you are seeking that information.
Yeah, it looks like they're concerned with the bus stops and the kids there. Okay, there was a question about Elm Lane roundabout. It says, does the conceptual roundabout Elm Lane mean there might be a traffic signal there instead?
No, so we have determined that that will be a roundabout as part of our design. And we've gone through that analysis as well. It's just what the actual geometry of the roundabout will look like.
There's a question on how long will each phase take to complete?
So currently, we will be working on the schedule for phase 1 as it is a design build delivery method. And phase 2 has not been funded for design and construction yet. So we'll be getting back to the residents once the funding years have been determined.
This question is regarding Park Farms and Bryant Farms, and I believe we talked about this a little bit earlier, but just to confirm that the light will remain at Parks Farm.
Yes, that light will remain, and we have coordinated with NCDOT and have received concurrence from them for us to retain the traffic signal there and put in the new one at Ray Road and Bryant Farms.
Next question, how are you addressing the potential difficulty going in and out of Stone Creek Ranch at Tom Short and Bryant Farms?
So Aaron or Maude, have we done any analysis at that point yet, or are we still looking at that?
So we're still looking at that, and that's going to be what we'll be evaluating when we have approved funding to move forward with the design phase. So we will definitely be looking at that and how everything will be impacted.
Again, just waiting on some questions to come in. Panelists, feel free to add anything while we're waiting.
Allison, did you see the question about potentially widening Ardrey Kell? I know Aaron touched on that earlier, but it might be somebody that joined later.
Yeah, if we can pass that back to you, Aaron.
Sorry, I lost my mute button. Yes, so Ardrey Kell is a DOT facility, and so our recommendation is if you guys have any further questions regarding Ardrey Kell, we'll defer you to NCDOT, and we can put in a contact at a later date for you to reach out to NCDOT to ask your questions regarding Ardrey Kell.
There's a question, how will the complete road compare to Ardrey Kell and Valentine Commons?
So obviously our complete street will include a multi-use path and the travel lanes. So that would not be the same as what's on Ardrey Kell, which is sidewalk. But this typical section is consistent with what we are doing as a city for our streetscapes. I don't know if you want to add in anything else on that.
No, you answered that pretty good.
All right, we had someone that said they joined a little bit late, so they might be asking a repeat question, but there might be multiple people in that situation. So again, what is the timeline to begin phase 2 and then also phase 1 as well? I saw a question on that.
Yeah, so phase 2 is not currently funded for design and construction. As soon as we have determined the funding years for that through our bond program, then we'll be able to update the public on the timeline to move forward. And phase 1 is currently going through the design and build process. Our design build team is working on getting through the design, and they're going to be coming out to you with an informational meeting and updating you with a schedule.
Okay, and there was a question about adding a left turn signal at Tom Short and Audrey Kell coming from Polo Ridge with some existing traffic congestion that's existing there today.
Yep, so with this project with the Bryant Farms, obviously we're not doing any impacts at the intersection of Tom Short and Audrey Kell. However, you know, as I previously mentioned, that is a DOT facility, and we can definitely reach out to DOT and inquire some more information for you regarding this item, and we can pass on the comment.
Thank you, Erin. Got multiple questions here asking about the type of plantings that will be in the designated 8-foot planting strip. Will they be trees, shrubs, or other types of plantings?
So as we get through the design process, our landscape management group will work on a landscaping plan for this area. It will likely be street trees based on the consistency of our typical streetscape projects. But again, the landscape management group will look at what will be best for this area in terms of growth and maintaining safety.
Thank you, Samantha. There's another question on here asking about the collaboration between NCDOT and the city's proposed Bryant Farms. Could we maybe just provide a little feedback on collaboration that's been done for that intersection?
Yes, as always, whenever we're doing a project where the city would interact with an NCDOT intersection, we work with our partners in NCDOT to make sure that we get their concurrence and that we follow their design guidelines as well as what is best for our road as well. So we have continued conversations early, often, and all throughout the project.
And another question again, someone had to join a little bit late, but they were asking about the increased noise and creating a barrier to minimize or prevent this issue in the Rayburn neighborhood adjacent to the new roadway.
So I would defer that question to when we get into the design process. We'll work with the Rayburn neighborhood as we're moving forward to talk about this further.
Thank you, Jenny, for paying into the timeline slide here. Had still some more questions coming in about the time frame, specifically clarifying when construction work will begin.
Yeah, and if we're talking about the phase one, as we talked about before, we will be holding informational meetings to update the timeline and schedule as our design build team moves through the process, as well as meeting with individual property owners late this year.
For anyone that joined late, feel free to ask questions in the Q&A box. And we did do a presentation at the beginning, but this will be recorded and posted on the website. So don't worry if you did miss that before. Or as Jenny mentioned earlier, if you have questions that you don't think of tonight, maybe think of later, you can reach back out at a later time. Okay, looks like some more questions coming in. Is phase one a small project compared to phase two regarding funding?
So phase one is a smaller project in length and what we're doing. So yeah, there is a difference in the amount of funding for each project.
And I know we talked about timeline, but this one's a little different regarding construction. It's more about what the hours of construction will be.
So I'm going to defer that question to Dave and talking about typical construction process.
Thank you, Samantha. Typically, the normal work day would be from 7 to 5:30 for the majority of the project. However, there will be times that's possible that there could be night work, especially in the roundabout section and the intersection, as well as there's some water line utility work that's also going to be added to the project that a lot of times will require doing tie-ins at night to minimize impact for water outages. So, but most, I'll say, we'll try to keep most of it. None of us like to work at night, so we're going to try to keep it a 7 to 5:30 operation as much as possible.
Okay. Two questions coming in. The first is, when will the roundabout be started on Elm Lane? So Jenny, I don't know if you want to pan back to the schedule slide. Maybe while we answer the second question, why will the left turn from Ray Road to Ravencrest be done away with? And Aaron, I know you spoke to that a little bit earlier, but for those that joined late, maybe providing some clarification on that.
Yes, so as we are not planning on removing the left turn lane from Ray Road onto Ravencrest. So that was just a question another resident had, if we would consider that. And as of right now, we have not considered it. We're not planning on removing the left at this time. So, and we can look into it, but CDOT doesn't have any plans right now to do that.
So again, a little bit more clarification looking for here about the construction timing of the roundabout at Elm Lane.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought Samantha Miller was going to answer that. I apologize.
Oh, I'm sorry. I
So-
was trying to find my mute button.
Okay, I'll let you answer, Sam.
Yeah. So again, we are doing a design build delivery method for the phase 1 project. So the design build team will be providing an informational schedule as soon as we get through the design to tell you more about the construction schedule, as it will be different than our normal delivery process. So stay tuned.
So follow-up question to that response there. Oh, Samantha, I see you already see it, but I'll repeat the question just for those
Go ahead.
listening in. What is the difference than the normal delivery process?
I'm going to let Roman take this one.
Sure. So the progressive design build just really allows the city to move quicker into the construction phase. So that's one of the main advantages of using a design build, or in this case, progressive design build. Adding the progressive component means that we can kind of work through this design together with the city. So in most projects, there is collaboration between the owner, the city, and the designer. With a design build, we have the advantage of having Dave and his team with us through that whole process. So the contractor's already on board, and we can really tailor the design to a more constructability focused type design. So we already know who's going to be building it, how they're going to be building it, and it really helps us refine that design and come up with better options than if we're kind of working separately. So speed, collaboration, those are the two main advantages of using it. And also with the progressive design build, it allows the city to kind of maximize their funding for the project. So as we develop the design, we can keep refining cost estimates and determining if things need to be added to the project or need to come out to make sure that we fit everything within the city's budget.
Okay, well, Allison, I'm not seeing a lot more questions coming in right now. So you've got the contact information back up on the screen. Like we said, feel free to reach out directly to Ahmad or go to the project website. There's a form on there that you can submit any questions or comments to the project team. And we did record this whole presentation in the question and answer session, and we'll have that posted on the website by early next week if you want to go back and review any of the information. So we'll thank everybody that's joined and provided their questions so far, and we will hang on for a few more minutes. But since we've slowed down a little bit, I just wanted to go ahead and take a minute to thank everybody that attended tonight, and we will hang around a bit longer to answer any questions.
Okay, a question came in. How wide will the proposed road be adjacent to the athletic field in the Rayburn neighborhood?
Allison, do you want to take that question?
So Jenny's got pulled up on the screen here, the preferred typical section, which is what we're showing throughout the entire project corridor. So the turn lanes there that you're seeing, they vary throughout the project. As we showed on the concept map, there's a few as needed through the corridor, but for the most part, you've got the two 11-foot lanes, curb and gutter section, and then an 8-foot planing strip, which is just grass. And then you'll also have the multi-use path on the outside of that, which is 12 feet. And I'll add to that, if there was concerns with potentially impacting the athletic field, we are reviewing any impacts that we would have as we're going through the project corridor. That is part of the design process that we have. Jenny, I'm not seeing any additional questions come in on that, so I don't know if we want to pan back to the contact information in case anyone wants to write that down before they drop off. Okay, and a question came in, what would the road look like between Elm Lane and Ray Road? They saw the phase 2 typical section. Is it the same typical section in the phase 1 section?
Yeah, so the phase 1 typical section is similar in terms of the 11-foot travel lanes as well as the 8-foot planning strip and multi-use path. So it's a consistent typical section from phase 1 to phase 2.
Samantha, I'm not seeing a lot more questions coming in, so not sure how much longer you want to keep this open, or we can, go ahead and end the meeting now and have the recording posted and have it available that people can still submit their questions via email.
I think that sounds like a great idea.
All right. Well, again, thank you so much to everyone that joined the meeting tonight, and thank you for providing all your great questions. And as Samantha mentioned, any questions that we said we'd follow up on, we'll be getting back to you with responses on those, as well as any of the questions that were submitted via email prior to the meeting. So check the website early next week for a posting of the presentation, and have a good evening. Thank you so much.